Good morning, beautiful people. This is your guy, Tone DeShields II from Good Morning NFC East, filling in for my guy, Jeff Kerr. Appreciate you guys so much. Jeff will be back tomorrow. That's what I've been told. That's what I expect. So, Jeffrey, don't you let me down, my man. I've been holding you down. I need you to have my back for the next couple days. But we're here, and as always, grateful to be here with you guys. Smash that like button. Continue to stay locked in on JAKIB Sports. More content to come. You guys already know the programming. Good Morning NFC East first, Birds 365 next, then the Sports Take guys at 12 o'clock p.m. Eastern time, and then we close the day out with our 3 o'clock show, the National Football Show with Dan Silio. So make sure you guys continue to stay engaged, stay locked in on JAKIB Sports all day. We have a lot of things to talk about, a lot of things to discuss. Some may say the Philadelphia Eagles' future is very uncertain. Some might say out of all the teams that made the playoffs, the Philadelphia Eagles have the most question marks, which is something you don't normally see from a team that made the Super Bowl. It's not normal. As a matter of fact, what's really not normal is a football team losing both coordinators in the same coaching hiring cycle. It's not really a common thing. As a matter of fact, the Eagles became the first team in nearly 3 decades to lose both coordinators to head coaching jobs. I believe in the same season. Let me make sure I got that right. The first team in nearly 3 decades to lose both coordinators to head coaching jobs after a Super Bowl trip. Hasn't happened in a long time. So what does that say about the Philadelphia Eagles coaching staff now? Brian Johnson's there. Kevin Patullo. Will they be the next OCs? Who's going to elevate to the DC? Denard Wilson? The DB coach? You never know. But this is something that we have to discuss because, again, the future is pretty uncertain, but it's not bleak. There's a difference. People may say, naysayers, detractors may say, the Philadelphia Eagles' future, I don't know, man. I don't see it. It's not looking too bright to me. But as long as you got your quarterback right, any future is bright. That's the bottom line. And any decision made from this point forward, especially when it comes to the offensive coordinator position, it has to be in the best interest of Jalen Hurts. Remember, we spoke about this yesterday. We spoke about Shane Steichen leaving for the Colts job. We spoke about potentially Jonathan Gannon leaving for the Arizona Cardinals job. We spoke about all these things, and all these things were very, very possible. Now, if I'm being completely honest, the Colts hire, I can make sense of. The Cardinals hire of Jonathan Gannon, I'm trying to figure out what their plan is. It doesn't affect me. It's not something I necessarily care about, but I'm trying to figure out what the Cardinals' plan is. Because you moved on from an offensive-minded coach to bring in a defensive-minded coach for your quarterback that had a problem with the previous quarterback or the previous coordinator, excuse me. It's just, I'm not understanding. Are you trying to get the most out of Kyler Murray? Because I can't tell with this hire. Now, sure, Jonathan Gannon can hire his offensive guys, his offensive people. He's not going to worry about the offense at all. So maybe that's what a guy like Kyler Murray needs, right? He needs a guy that's not necessarily the head, but also a part of the body, and that can provide him some context without, I don't know. Nonetheless, how does this affect the Philadelphia Eagles? Like I said, the Philadelphia Eagles now have to go on a coordinator search, a mass coordinator search. So who's up? Brian Johnson. I think he may be the guy. And let me tell you why. We know the Philadelphia Eagles don't really like to outsource, but so much. They really prefer in-house hires. They prefer in-house elevations. So we'll see how this thing pans out. I think Brian Johnson should be the guy for the sake of his relationship with the quarterback. And now at this point, because you know Jalen Hurts is your guy, they haven't quite paid him yet, but we all know that money is coming. The Eagles will be fools to move on from a guy like Jalen Hurts at this point because who do you have? But nonetheless, it's important to make your franchise guy as comfortable as he possibly can be. Now the Eagles have to soothe Jalen Hurts' ego. I'm not saying he has one, but you guys catch my drift. When it comes to your quarterback, every decision you make has to be for his best interests. Not just the team, his, because he's the engine. Now, I'm pretty sure they're going to make a lot of moves to fortify this roster, and they had to build it the right way, especially after they paid Jalen Hurts. But ultimately, who's going to be the OC? Who's going to be the DC? Some people say Lovie Smith. Maybe they reach out to him. Maybe Vic Fangio. I don't know. Mike Zimmer. I don't know. But ultimately, the decision has to be for the best interest of Jalen Hurts and the team. It's just as simple as that. You don't want to have too many different ears in your, or too many different voices in your quarterback's ear. I honestly feel when you really think about this season as a whole, there might have been too many cooks in the kitchen, especially on defense. Excuse me. Because for the life of me, I'm still, and this is a sidebar, but for the life of me, I'm still trying to figure out why Vic Fangio was hired for the, for 2 weeks in the Super Bowl. But I digress. Oh, Fangio got hired by the Dolphins. Thank you, Cal Bundy. I appreciate that. Thanks, Cal Bundy. Well, first and foremost, man, let's get some shout outs out the way. Hulk Mercenary, welcome to the show. Jeff Walker, Gang Over, welcome to the show. T. Will, Cal Bundy, Jeff Walker. Appreciate you guys for locking in as always. Appreciate you other people for locking in. So again, what happens next? Because the pressure now is on Nick Sirianni to figure this thing out. But how much say will he have in his staff? He did bring the Philadelphia Eagles to the Super Bowl. Let's really peel back the layers here. Nick Sirianni, a guy who was brought in by Howie Roseman, but how much say did Nick Sirianni actually have over his staff in the first place? Let's dig deep, you guys. I need you to follow me here. Now we're in the midst of a case study here. Nick Sirianni brought in by Howie Roseman. Remember, Jonathan Gannon was already here before Nick Sirianni got here. So technically, Nick Sirianni didn't choose Jonathan Gannon. Okay, that was last year. Last year. So he didn't pick his DC. Nick Sirianni got in. I'm pretty sure he had some influence over bringing Shane Steichen in because they do have a relationship. But ultimately, Howie made the hire. Or did Howie make the suggestion? Did Nick Sirianni want to go in a different direction? We'll never know. But ultimately, Shane Steichen came in, and even Jeff Stoutland was retained. That's not a Nick Sirianni guy. Not saying Jeff Stoutland shouldn't want to be here. Jeff Stoutland should be here. But remember, there were certain things in place prior to Nick Sirianni coming here. And we all know how Howie Roseman likes to move. If his fingerprints aren't on it, it doesn't go. So, how much influence will Howie Roseman have over who Nick Sirianni chooses as his offensive coordinator and defensive coordinator? Because this is sometimes where GMs get in trouble. You see, GMs are just supposed to put the final stamp on it, just sign a dotted line. Some GMs get too involved in the football operations. You build the roster, general manager. When it comes to knowing the X's and O's and who I want to call my plays and so on and so forth, I think that's something the head coach should be solely responsible for. Or we can do it this way if you want to do a collaborative effort. Nick Sirianni compiles maybe a list of 2 to 3 candidates for each the OC position and the DC position. He says, look, Howie, these are 3 guys, or 6 guys rather, that I'm considering. 3 guys for the OC, 3 guys for the DC. These are 3 guys that I would not mind having here. What's your thoughts? You see, this is where Nick Sirianni will probably have more success with Howie Roseman than Doug Peterson did. I'm not talking accolades, and I'm not talking Super Bowl success. I'm talking about from the relationship perspective. What failed between Doug Peterson and Howie Roseman previously was the relationship. It wasn't the football stuff. The relationship soured first. Because if the relationship was there, Nick Sirianni wouldn't be here. Doug and Howie got into this weird ego battle. Who's responsible for more of the Eagles' success? Who's more responsible for the Super Bowl? We're not going to get into that. We're not going to get into why. But the bottom line is there was a power struggle there. Doug wanted to build his own staff. Howie wanted some new blood in the building. You follow me here? So it's going to be important to see. It's going to be important to find out how Nick Sirianni navigates this. This is going to be a hell of an offseason, you guys. We got so much to discuss. You know, the Philadelphia Eagles don't make waves during the season in terms of negative news. That's not what the Eagles do. They're not really a controversial organization. But the Philadelphia Eagles are probably the organization or the team to watch in the offseason because of so many moves that need to be made. You feel me? You have to hire a new OC, a new DC. You still have to figure out your upcoming free agent situation. This defense, there's only about 2 or 3 players on defense who are guaranteed to be here this upcoming 2023 season. Starters, I mean. Starters. I'm not talking about depth pieces. I'm talking about starters. There's only about 3 starters who are going to be coming back for the 2023 season on defense. The Eagles have so many moves to make. This offseason is going to be electric. They have 2 first-round draft picks. How will they approach that? Will they trade back for more assets to get more talent? Will they trade up to get a guy they want? You don't know. But we're going to dig deeper into this stuff as the season progresses. We're going to get into the scouting reports and the various mock drafts and talk about what these what these college players are doing. Who are the top prospects? We're going to get into all that. So, Mint Diggity, you bring up a good question. Who's calling plays next year? It's a bit early to say that, right? Not a bad question, a pertinent question, a valuable question. But it's a bit early to figure out who's doing it. It's a bit early. We're what, 3 or 4 days removed from the Super Bowl loss? Will Nick Sirianni go back to calling plays? It all depends. We know what the team looked like, or the offense rather. We know what it looked like when he was calling plays prior. Now, granted, Jalen Hurts was a lesser quarterback then. Jalen Hurts is an entirely different project right now. He's an entirely different specimen. He's an entirely different player. He's elevated his skill set, his talent base. So if Nick Sirianni went back to calling plays, would Jalen Hurts be able to execute those plays the way Nick Sirianni would like? You see, there's a reason Shane Steichen took over, because he was able to maximize what Jalen did well. Now, don't get it twisted. Nick Sirianni is the play designer. He designs all the concepts and all that stuff. But as far as the sequencing and the play calling, that was Shane Steichen. So it's not that Nick Sirianni doesn't know how to prepare the plays for Hurts. Maybe his feel for the play calling or his sequencing wasn't really there quite yet. But we'll see. Because if you elevate Brian Johnson to OC, I'm curious to see if you allow him to make the plays, to call the plays. It's something to consider. Now that Nick Sirianni has made it to a Super Bowl, didn't win it, but made it, does that somehow bloviate or inflate, rather, his ego? Me? I don't really think so. I think there's something about Jalen Hurts, the way he moves through the organization. It prevents certain things from happening. He's such a steady force. He's such a steady presence. Jalen Hurts is like that perfect bridge between Howie and Nick. But also Howie and Nick So it appears they have a pretty good relationship. I'm not going to sit here and go out on a limb and say, oh, they're best friends. We don't know that. We can't pretend that we know that. You don't know that. I mean, we know what they tell us. We know what we see. You know, Nick is this really happy-go-lucky guy, really passionate guy, you know. Hey, we're hanging out, Howie. That, you know, that's his style. And Nick's going to do everything in his power to continue to massage Howie's ego. Neither of these guys are bad people. But Howie Roseman, there's some things that come with him that you have to be willing to work with. That's why Doug Peterson isn't here, because he couldn't deal with the way Howie Roseman did business. He couldn't deal with the overseer mentality of a Howie Roseman. But Nick Sirianni knows how to navigate it. He knows how to navigate it. Nick Sirianni knows how to make a decision seem like it was Howie's when it was really his. He has to be clever in that way. But it's all about working with people. It's all about relationships. Even though this is the football business, this is the sports business, we all get it. It's all about wins and losses. But you're also working in the people business as well. Relationships take you further in the NFL than anything. We see it firsthand. We see it with some of these coaching hires. Relationships take you further than anywhere else. Now, I personally felt like Gannon made more sense in Indianapolis, and Shane Steichen made more sense with the Cardinals. But congratulations to those gentlemen for getting their opportunities. But again, let's bring it full circle here. Who will be the OC and the DC for the Philadelphia Eagles? Jeff Walker says he did well, just as he did as well, just like this, just as the CEO coach. He would focus on the management part. You're talking about Sirianni. I get it. I get what you mean. And I like Nick Sirianni as the CEO guy. I felt like he really flourished in that role. You see, the good thing about Nick Sirianni, he trusts the people around him. He empowers his staff. There's something to be said about that. You see, Nick showed relatively early in his coaching career that he will not allow his ego to get in the way of the success of the team. That goes a long way with me. That goes a long way because there are some coaches who are so hell-bent on driving home their point, so hell-bent on hammering the square peg into a round hole. They want their system to work. Their system is the gospel. Not Nick Sirianni. He didn't move that way. You got to give credit where credit is due with that. That takes a lot of stones. Because in a way, you're admitting that what you were doing isn't working. In a way, you're admitting defeat. But it's how you look at it. It's how you handle it. Because how you handle it doesn't make it defeat. How you handle it doesn't make it look like desperation. How you handle it doesn't make it look like a loss. When you handle delegation properly, when you handle your coaching staff properly and trust people and put people in positions of power, it's never a bad look on a leader. You see, let's think about business, right? Let's think about business here. It's important for great leaders to empower the people around them. No man is an island. You must draw your strength from others around you. Shout out to my man, Jalen Hurts. Nick Sirianni realizes that. You're only as good as the sum of your parts. So Nick Sirianni stepping back, not letting his ego get in the way of the success of the team, said a lot to me about who he was. Because there are some people who are great coaches, but they're not necessarily great play callers. They're great offensive minds. They can draw it up. You know, they can scheme it up, but maybe they can't play it. Maybe they don't have a feel for sequencing. That doesn't make you any lesser of a coach. Some of the best coaches didn't call plays. Some of the best coaches were just motivators and delegators and knew how to move pieces on the chessboard. There's some play callers that can't play chess. You follow me? There are some play callers who don't know how to move the pieces on the board. That's where your CEO coach comes in. That's why Nick Sirianni is a good coach. You don't get to a Super Bowl with Nick Sirianni being a bad coach. You got to trust the people around you. And I think it's going to be really interesting to see how much he trusts Brian Johnson. Does he trust him enough to elevate him? Does Howie trust Sirianni enough to elevate Brian Johnson? What has Brian Johnson showed this team, this organization, to prove that he should be the OC? I'm pulling for Brian Johnson because he is not directly responsible, but he had a strong hand in helping Jalen Hurts maintain his fundamentals, hone his fundamentals. He helped him understand what he's seeing, the footwork, the mechanics. We know Jalen did his thing in the offseason, but Brian Johnson helped him maintain that level of performance. He coached him, helped develop him. Jalen trusts him. Like I told you guys, it's football, it's sports, but you're in the people business, in my opinion, first and foremost. It starts with the relationships. It starts with the people. And whatever decision you do make, Howie, Nikki, at the OC position, it has to be for the best interest of Jalen Hurts. Has to be. Cal Bundy, man, Gannon slid out the back door after the Super Bowl. It's hard for me to wish success on that man. Yeah, it's kind of look, man. Let me get a drink of water before I really get into this. Gannon's situation is so funny to me because after the NFC Championship, he was so geeked. Yeah, I'm not going anywhere. I love it here. Let's gut these guys. I love Philadelphia. Man, that escalated quickly. How the tables have turned, Gannon. And look, I'm not tripping about you leaving. I'll be honest. I wasn't really a fan of his philosophies anyway. Sure, his defense is pretty common in the NFL, but I wasn't a fan of how he executed that defense. I wasn't a fan of his philosophy. I wasn't a fan of his ability to think on his feet. So is losing Gannon the biggest loss? Not really. Did the Philadelphia Eagles have a historic year defensively? Yeah, they did. Statistically, they did. But you got to be mindful. Sometimes you can get fat off of mediocre quarterback play. I just think it's funny how, like you said, Cal Bundy, he slid out the back door. He snuck out like a thief in the night. The moment they lost, hey, is that job still available in Arizona? Yeah, I need you guys to make that happen. You feel what I'm saying? Mint Diggity says, he said, for better or worse, I'll be back. I'll be back, Philadelphia. Well, I don't know what that means. The for better or for worse. Is that like a clever way of saying, I don't know what's going to happen, but you guys will see me like, well, like, what are we doing here? And look, again, I'm not tripping about Gannon leaving. I'm not mad. Get your coins, my friend. Go get it. Go make a name for yourself out there in Arizona. I think that situation will fail. But, hey, man, who am I to say? You see, they hired that man so quick. How much input did Kyler Murray actually have on the hire? Remember, the Bidwells, is that the family that owns the Cardinals, the Bidwells? They made it clear that they were going to consult Kyler Murray on their next head coaching hire. They hired that man pretty quickly. How much did Kyler Murray consult in that decision? I don't know, man. The decision to me seemed hasty. It seemed rushed. It seemed rushed. So I don't know. We'll see if it works. We'll see if it works in Arizona. But Shane Steichen, I think he's in a pretty good position to succeed. He's going to have a top 10 draft pick. Word is the Colts may trade up to that #1 overall pick to get Bryce Young. He'll have his quarterback. He has a running back, has a pretty good O-line, has a pretty good defense. You know, Shane Steichen is set up for success much more than Jonathan Gannon. That's a pretty good topic, actually. I might have to throw that Cilio's way. Who's more set up for success, Steichen or Gannon? That's a pretty good topic. I like that. But we're going to take our first break. Let's do that. I have a topic I want to bring up with you guys that, in my opinion, I think it's interesting about the way this team is built right now. And the Eagles have a lot of decisions to make in the offseason. Whether we want to accept it or not, this defense especially is going to look a lot different. But I want to talk to you guys about the nucleus of the Philadelphia Eagles. We're going to go through some of the key players on this team, and if these key players still make the Philadelphia Eagles formidable going forward in their quest for a Super Bowl. You guys have been locked in on Good Morning NFC East. I'm your guy, Tone DeShields II, filling in for Jeffrey Kerr, who will be back tomorrow. So I need you guys to continue to stay locked in. Smash that like button. Remain engaged in the comment section. You guys are doing great today. We'll be right back